but we are live. So if you want to start with the conversation we were having,
no, I think that's a terrible idea.
I think it's a terrible idea.
Horrible idea.
How's it a terrible idea, Ocean?
I don't know. I don't have any details about why it's a bad idea. Is there a hammer somewhere? Look, we're starting Hammered Out. Oh my God. Look at that. Look, we're live.
There's a tiny hammer.
We're really live, Subject Changely.
Subject Changely, is that where we are? Man, I really just want this live chat to work, but it breaks every time in the beginning. It's like it hides
right when the
from
show
the fact
starts,
that we were
like...
talking about furries.
Oh no!
Yeah, no,
you revealed it.
It's called segueing, Ocean. It's natural.
Yeah. Instead of inserting foot into mouth, you can get that one of those detachable tails, that they attach to the belt.
Something about bunny tails falling off.
Why
Something
is
about
the
bunny
live chat not working?
They regrow, right?
Yeah. Only if your fursona is like a lizard.
I just want this live chat to work. I just want this live
someone's
chat.
saying tide goes in, tide goes out, ocean arrives. Okay, yeah. No,
tide goes in, tide
like
goes
that.
out. You can't explain that.
It's like my channel. It comes and goes with the tide. I have no idea when it's going to be in or out, though.
Yeah, checkmate moon realists.
I guess we're doing this without a live chat next to the thing because it's
we need the live chat.
I want the live chat.
First,
but
the live chat
broken.
scares me.
Yeah,
it's broken.
Why is it broken?
I don't know.
Those of you who are familiar with my Twitch, please sacrifice ram sticks in favor of the tech gremlins, so that we can actually get something working. Maybe they'll help us out.
I'm gonna see if I can fix this. Hold on. We're gonna flip.
We must burn the ram sticks.
We are now underwater. Aha! There it is. There's the live chat.
Praise to the tech gremlins.
I have gone underwater and there it is.
Oh my Jesus!
I did it. I had to get us out of lava and submerge us underwater, and suddenly the live chat is working. It is fantastic.
Well, the ram sticks worked. That's what I have to say.
So how is everybody?
They must have got on it fast.
Those tech gremlins are dependable, as long as the rest of possum doesn't steal your sacrifices.
Yeah, we actually have several possum that just frequent our property, and they're freaking adorable.
Possums are cute. They look like they're wearing little fingerless gloves.
Unfortunately, I had a possum give birth on our property about 2 months ago, but we were, for the record, Ocean knows I live out in the woods, right? We get coyotes that come onto our property and come foraging for whatever they can find.
Critters.
They actually took a dead goat off of my parents' property right after they had buried it. So now that they've tasted that, they go, oh, we know that there's food
like
here.
Layers to that.
But so these coyotes, they hop onto the property at night all the time. So we took out the trash and we're like, okay, well, we need to clean out the trash cans. We took it outside to clean it with the hose, but there were coyotes out there. So we left the trash can out and said, nope, we're not dealing with that tonight. That's a tomorrow thing. Well, it turns out a mother possum used our trash can for safety to give birth, but gave birth to stillborns. So it was a happy story until it wasn't, because we went out the next day and we saw her there just guarding the stillborn possum children. We're just like, hun, we're gonna have to tip this over, not just because we need our trash can, but you're not safe just guarding those. They're gone, hun. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But that said, now that we're here,
it's depressing as fuck.
Welcome to Hammered Out. We're dreaming
way to
to die.
On the note of small time, possum tragedy, let us begin. I had a similar thing happen. I've got these 2 great dogs here at my house. They're big golden retrievers, sweetest things you've ever seen. They're half sisters. Anyways, a couple years ago, I was getting my garden ready outside, and I pull up a big load of straw, and I find all these baby bunnies. And I was like, oh my God, these baby bunnies are so freaking cute. This is awesome. I was like, but they can't be in my garden. I was like, so how do you relocate baby bunnies? So I did all this research, made them a new little hutch, moved them, put a bunch of straw and stuff so that I'd know if the mom returned. She came back. I was like, sweet, I'm Ranger Rick would be proud of me at that point. And then one morning, it turns out my folks let the dogs out, and I didn't realize it. And they came to greet me with blood on their little cute dog faces. And I found 5 headless baby bunnies out by the hutches, and I was like,
they just didn't know any better.
Yeah, I was like, well,
Welcome to Hammered Out, everybody. Dead animals.
Tuck that one into the tuck that one into the trauma treasure trove.
So that all said, normally we enter with a tech issue of some kind because Ocean is a dirty pagan.
Right, it's my fault entirely.
I didn't have these issues before you got here. So.
Exactly. No, that
post hoc, ergo.
True.
That's damn it.
That being said.
Anyway, that said, so today,
this
as
is
you
a
noticed,
justified true belief.
As with. I'll strangle you through the screen.
That's the real definition of knowledge, sir.
Anyways, no, I'm a pragmatist. I don't subscribe to that definition of knowledge, and you understand that. You know
what?
This.
Oh God.
Oh, you must subscribe to absolute certainty then.
Oh, you guys, I'm allergic to
No,
philosophy.
I don't. You. Pragmatism does not subscribe to absolute certainty.
I don't know
You
what you're talking about.
troglodyte.
Oh.
Troglodyte.
You must have a wrong definition then. We're going to have to correct you.
Wow, that's a.
According to these academic papers, the real definition.
That just brought some flashbacks. let's not do that. Anyway, that said, as with most Hammered Out episodes that are not me and Ocean having a blood fight, which is currently what's happening right now anyway, we have, as usual, a guest on today. Today, our guest is Gutsick Gibbon, who also is known as the Gentle Modern Ape on Twitter if you see the angrier side of this person. How are you doing today?
Oh, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. It's always nice to enter a stream with conversation about furries and then of course dead baby animals. Really gets you in the mood for some light banter, you know?
Yeah.
Light banter. So Ocean, you're coming to that period cookout in a little bit, right? Like in a couple of weeks.
World?
So you are aware that means that I have control over what you eat, right? You don't piss off the cook, Ocean. You don't do it.
I don't get to cook?
I mean, if you want to cook, I'll take the help.
You seem to be insinuating something, and it's going right over my head. I don't know what's going on here. It's like, yes, I've eaten your cooking before. It's good. I
could slip poison into your next meal, Ocean.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously, and then I'll die, and all of my suffering will be over. Antinatalism is awesome. But
excellent.
What's there? I don't know.
Just a good last meal.
Life is pain, and then it stops.
I love how we have Son of Cirrus in the chat that just goes, maybe I think that pragmatism is best because I was indoctrinated by my Papa Cirrus.
That'll do it.
Not when I'm drinking. So,
what are you drinking anyway, Ocean?
What?
What are you drinking anyway from that stein of yours?
Like coffee, because it's late.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, late.
So
mine is Diet Dr. Pepper flavored caffeine. But anyway, so
I have met Erica Gutsick Gibbon is something I guess this is the first no, it's not. It's like the second real conversation that we've had because you were on my Discord a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like a more direct. This is one that I'm able to participate in where it's like I understand what we're talking.
Wait, right. You can participate in conversations.
The other one was me and objectively Dan got into an antinatalism conversation, and it was weird.
Antinatalism is a sandwich.
Oh, it was an interesting chat. I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I'm following. You lost me, and then
my emotional state went through several emoticons throughout that conversation.
Did you get the care react during it?
I don't know even what that means. Anyway,
oh, that's right. You don't have Facebook anymore. Okay.
No, so I don't do Facebook.
Okay.
That's
Fuck Facebook.
Choice. That is a healthy life choice.
That is a very healthy choice. I have had to unfollow several friends as they fall down the alt-right rabbit hole.
All of my stress, when I left Facebook, all of my stress was lifted and then replaced with Twitter.
Yeah.
So nothing changed.
It's pick your cesspool, you know? I mean.
Yes, very much. Discord is the same way. It's almost as bad.
Yeah. It turns out people are just terrible.
I really want to do a social media platform that doesn't involve people. Like if you give me a social media platform that involves robots or cats, it's probably going to be fine. Yeah. Or robot cats,
sure
because that would be really cool.
I'm pretty sure there's a dating sim out there for you then. I'm like 90% certain that's the premise of a dating sim.
You just turned that whole thing on its head in a way that is no. Anyway,
I did the same thing to my therapist today, actually.
Anyway, so I met Gutsick Gibbon, or I found out about Gutsick Gibbon through Shannon Q, who was like, Ocean, you have to see this person who's debating creationists right now.
Dude, I'm coming for Shannon. She's too sweet.
She is like your biggest cheerleader, but she was so straight up like, Ocean, look at this.
Maybe I've known Shannon for longer than you, but Shannon can be very fierce.
No,
yes.
no. Shannon is like the the way I pictured it's like having like a spoon attached to like a switchblade, right? It's like one end is very nice and sweet and aesthetically pleasing. And
spoon
nice.
Attached to a switchblade,
and then the other one is just lethal.
So, but she was saying like, all right, you gotta look at how she's debating Standing for Truth right now. It was a Standing for Truth debate.
Moronic SpongeBob, my favorite.
Because you've debated that guy like more than once now, right?
Like Standing and I are pals. We get along, but yeah, I've debated Standing a couple of times. The thing is that Standing is an odd character in a lot of ways. I've had nothing but pleasant conversations with him, but yeah, There's
been some that have gone south with him before.
That's because he's one of the types of people that can pleasantly tell you that gay people should have their brain matter on the wall. That's so like, yeah, they're pleasant in the words that I'm literally saying what Steven Anderson has said to his congregation.
No, I know.
No, I 100% buy that. Yeah, it's a very weird dichotomy with that, you know? I mean, and there's a weird, I've said this before, but there's a weird block too when it comes to like scientific rigor. Like he's very much okay with following you to a certain point on like understanding concepts. And it's not that he's incapable of understanding them past that point. It feels like there's a wall that just falls down. It goes up. It's the same thing with people
called indoctrination. He hits the wall of indoctrination.
And it applies to empathy too, right? You know, where it's like that empathy will go so far. But once you cross into the realm of like, I don't know, LGBTQ stuff, it gets a wall comes down.
As soon as it's people that he doesn't consider people, then he stops agreeing that people should have rights, basically.
I imagine a level of abstraction occurs, you know, that I don't know. There are very few times that I've met people who are like hardcore evangelicals who like actually know, you know, like any kind of person who's not like straight and white, I guess. Mm-hmm. And who holds those stringent beliefs, right? Like usually if they have kind of a more diverse social circle, they're less likely to be hateful. And I don't know anything about Standing for Truth's like friend circle or any of that, so I can't speak to that. But in personal like anecdotal life experiences, that's kind of how it tends to go, I feel like.
Yeah, usually it's when you've met somebody who is not. Actually, you know what? I actually have a comment that I got about this exact type of thing. That I can read real quick. Let me just go ahead and pull it up because it's about this. So there was a video I did a while back about Steve King because he was saying that you shouldn't allow abortion in any case, including rape and incest and other issues where we would agree that there's actually like good reason to have an abortion. I need to scoot. I realized I'm very weird on the camera. So this comment that I got was actually. Meeting someone who was a victim of rape by her dad drastically changed my perspective. I am opposed to removing access to options under any circumstances now. Like, literally, meeting somebody who had gone through that type of oppression caused him to go, wait, I'm the asshole.
Yeah.
I'm the problem. Like, that's a good thing. That doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's great. It's like... You have a racist person, like a racist male. He has a daughter. The daughter dates a black man. He doesn't like that, but suddenly he has a black grandchild, and he's got to wrestle with, wait, my grandchild is mixed, but he's got a racist brain, so he doesn't see mixed. He just sees black. Well, now he's got to wrestle with that.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with like human evolution in the case where it's like we have our social circles and we make our in-group and then we have our out-group. And it's like if you're in the in-group, like you're safe, like, I got your back, whatever, we're gonna be pals in whatever way I've laid down my life for you, protect the tribe, et cetera, et cetera. It's that kind of mentality. But as the in-group expands and more people tend to fall into it, more kinds of people fall into it, you see like empathy just skyrocket. It's just different walks of life. Like, and we're very lucky in a lot of ways to live in an age where, like, with the digital age and things like that, where we can really, really expand our in-group to include a lot of people because the possibilities are endless with regard to who can.
It allows conspiracy theorist communities to get so big.
It's okay. Your voice just you went from sounding like this to suddenly I'm hearing an actual god, and now I'm confused.
Do I did my levels go? They shouldn't be different.
There you go. Oh, that is so much better.
I don't know what's happening.
Holy shit.
Something happened.
That was weird.
Okay.
You're good now.
The tech gremlins attacked again. All right.
Yep.
Anyway, I did literally nothing to help nor hinder.
So you say.
Whatever just happened to Sir.
Don't worry, I believe you.
All right, cool. Anyway, to get back to my talking up Erica over here, the thing that like I thought was really interesting with the Standing for Truth conversation was you were handling him in a way that I hadn't seen really anybody else do. Like most of the time, especially a modern day debate, what happens is people get on there and they just yell at each other or something. Or they disagree vehemently and they get into a no, you're wrong because this and this, and it's a gotcha. Like they need to build that gotcha moment. And what you were doing was a much more like calm, explaining, happy to educate. Oh, I'm excited that you brought that up. Let's go into that, and let me show you these 5 slides that I've already prepared because I think that you'd done research on this person and knew they were going to bring up that objection. Yeah, because like what, like how, I don't know. It's clear that you're doing something a little different, and tell me why.
I was actually going to ask another question as well. On top of that, the animations that you have in your episodes, the ones at the beginning, are those like that's what you do before the episode?
Yeah,
that is really impressive.
Listen, when I was talking earlier about that stuff about knowing how commissions work, I know that from experience.
Same.
I do cartoons and stuff, so when I got the opportunity, when I did the whole YouTube thing, I was like, oh well, I might as well kind of implement those two things. But yeah, in my house, growing up, me and my dad in particular, we were big on like debating, I guess you could say. Things would be resolved fairly quickly afterwards, but they were loud and they were, verbally quite violent between the two of us. We have a great relationship. It was just very like intense.
Me and my dad are similar.
When
we debate, it gets heated, but
it gets heated.
Cool.
Yeah, it gets heated, and particularly because we have very different opinions. And at some point, it kind of occurred to me that I would never. I could track when I would get through to him and when I wouldn't. And the second people got loud and the second aggression came into the picture and it became this sort of competition, both of us shut down. And I was like, okay, and I do enjoy debate. I enjoyed a good debate. But the thing is that the second that things reach that level is the second, like we just said, it shuts down for the night. That's it. Game over. No one is going to be receptive any longer.
That's why I'm surprised that I'm not sure if either of you caught my conversation with Call for an Uprising yesterday. But surprisingly, that conversation didn't involve any of that. I fully expected it to.
There would just be lots of yelling and screaming.
Yeah. And you run into like this kind of dangerous zone too, though, when you kind of go the passive route, where you're like, all right, I'm going to go into this, I'm going to keep myself calm, and we're going to have a discussion, because you can't go into any of this with the mindset like I'm going to win, because the thing is people don't change their minds in one debate, or at least they very rarely do,
unless you are doing a debate on a public platform and the goal is not to change the mind of your interlocutor, it's to change the mind of the audience.
Yes, precisely. Or they're going about it in a way to see like, all right, who performed better, or whose rhetoric was better, whichever way. I mean, if I've learned anything from keeping up with modern day debate, someone can be wrong and still win the debate if their rhetoric is better, at least according to the comment section.
Yep.
But you can't go into passive either, because if you go in passive, then one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to get walked all over, or the other person is going to interpret that you're just lecturing at them. So I kind of have changed my mindset through the years, where it's like, I genuinely want to understand what the other person thinks and why they think it. So it's kind of like, all right, it's almost like an epistemological thing from my perspective, but also from an aspect of like, I want everyone who's watching to get something out of it, from an educational standpoint. So it's like, I talk like I'm talking to standing, but I'm also talking to everybody who's watching, because I find this stuff really fascinating and really interesting, and I could talk about it on its own for forever.
You're as much a conversationalist as you are a presenter at that point, and you've got to play.
Yeah.
I think Matt Dillahunty made this point a couple of times as well, is that there's, I don't remember what exact ratio he uses for it, but I think he said like 60% of debate is theater. And if you're not good at theater, you're just good at presentation. Like you don't debate. You just do presentations, do stuff like that. If you're not good at that theater portion, if you're not good at that performative portion, not good at talking to the audience as much as you're talking to your interlocutor. This is why when I'm sure both of you saw the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate years ago.
You should.
I didn't get around to that one. Everybody said that I needed to watch it, and you know what I didn't do is watch it.
It is probably one of the best debates against a creationist there is on the platform, because Bill Nye, luckily, has had so much experience presenting to an audience, because that's been his job for so long. During that, he just literally,
and making it accessible too.
That debate felt like just an episode of a TV show.
Yeah. Well, and there's another thing that I want to touch on that Bill Nye exemplifies perfectly, and that's he didn't go into that debate picturing Ken Ham as an enemy. And there were multiple times that an olive branch was sort of extended, like from, near the end, he was like, all right, well, what would change your mind? If you could give me an example of something that would change your mind about this, what would it be? And of course, to Ken Ham and to everyone who's watching. Yeah, Ken Ham said nothing. But of course, to everyone who's watching, that's basically saying like, all right, look, tell me how I can reach you, I guess, which is a very personal way of interacting. And when I debate people, I always kind of my hope is that I will leave on friendly terms and consider that person, I want to agree with them on at least something, find that common ground. And in that same vein, which is very similar to how Bill debates, I've noticed a lot of people when they get in that aggressive mood, there's a lot of accusation that goes down, like you're lying about that, or you're doing that on purpose, or and then that very quickly devolves into an ad hom thing. So I think giving people the benefit of the doubt, even when that it might not be there, that good intention that you're ascribing to them is really important for a good conversation.
It's a lot like one of the things that they teach you. I didn't know they taught you this in law school when you're training up to be a lawyer, until I did an episode related to this, and then people who actually were in school for this or were lawyers came to me and said, no, this is actually what we're trained to do. It's a lot like granting the premise in a debate, where you just instead of just smacking down your opponent, you go, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and stand in your shoes for a minute. Let me go ahead and be you for a moment. Let me live as if I'm you for half a second. Let's grant that. Where are we once we've granted that? And a lot of times, people haven't had their positions deconstructed that way. They've always been deconstructed from without. And they're not prepared for you to step in and go, okay, let's assume this. Now that we're here, let's be friends. And they're used to people going for their throats. They're not used to that. And a lot of them don't know how to deal with that. When I did that to Matt Powell, if you're used to, if you know who the abusive cupcake is, when I did
very angry cupcake.
When I did that with Matt Powell, he didn't understand what I was doing at all. He thought that I was literally saying intelligent design is real. And Aaron Raw did a video and went, no, you just don't understand what Cyrus did. You just don't get that he just granted your position and then beat it that way. That's it seems like it's the same thing that you're doing there. Is you step into their shoes, you have the conversation from their perspective, and when you do it, suddenly a lot of the weapons, a lot of the tools they brought, they don't work anymore. It's like you have a bunch of archers, but they're approaching with a phalanx.
Yeah.
Your archers aren't going to beat a phalanx. It's not designed for that.
Yeah. Designed. You said it, not me. Yeah, there's a lot of debate that boils down to how you approach the situation, and I don't think there's a single way to win. And I say that in quotations because again, like my goal isn't to win a debate. Like I don't. Fortunately, too, from my perspective, it's like I'm talking about science. I'm talking about reality. Like I don't feel like that's something that I'm going to try to win. It's been won for me.
Ocean.
Nothing.
Ocean is.
I didn't do it.
Matt Powell is the angriest cupcake.
That is a serious. Look at the brow ridge on that cupcake.
He's a very angry cupcake. I like the pink swirls on the top.
Yeah. Some sprinkles. That's multicolored. That's what it means. Yeah, I think people get so caught up in the idea of a debate being a fight, like a contest of wills, that I think what also falls through the cracks is when you're wrong about something, be it something small, like a missaying something, misinterpreting what the other person was saying, and they're like, no, that's not what I meant. There's nothing wrong with being like, oh, I was wrong on that. My mistake. Help me understand where you're coming from. Explain it better for me because it's on my end very clearly. Even if it sometimes isn't. Like I think humanizing yourself to the other person is just as important as remembering the other person is human too. Yeah, because
sometimes actually I think that might have been what happened during the conversation with Call yesterday. Because during a lot of that conversation, like the beginning of it, he was saying things like, "Oh, look, your hairline's retreating. Are you sitting pretty in your basement while your mom cooks your food for you?" And I'm just sitting there like, okay, like yeah, my hairline's receding, but at least I'm not Ocean. I'm kidding. But during the conversation,
Dawn, dude.
Like I think after about half an hour of the conversation, he actually started apologizing for his behavior of all things. And like, granted, he didn't apologize for the stuff I actually care about. But his...
I had that happen recently too. There's a guy that was like, I want to apologize for being rude.
And you're just like, I didn't care that you were rude.
I don't care if you're rude.
Like, I cared that you said that all trans people need to be in cages. That's the thing that bothered me.
Yeah, this was another pastor that was saying, we need to put as many bodies in a church as possible during a pandemic. And I was just like,
apt wording!
Yeah.
Apt wording!
That's my summary of what he was saying, not his actual wording, but...
I was going to say a pew very easily becomes a coffin with enough nails.
Yeah, God. Oh, man.
Really hit the nail on the head there.
There's an appeal to authority. Anyway, but yeah.
P.U.
Words.
Ocean. Bad joke.
Pew, pew, pew. Anyway, he said something along the... Hold on a second. I retweeted it and with Pagan Bad. Next to it because he got so mad.
Oh, I saw this one where wasn't this the one where he was like, "No offense, but I don't want to take advice from a pagan."
He legitimately was just like, I could really care less to be lectured about what my church should do from a pagan if we're being honest here. And what I told him was like, look, pagans have moved our rituals online. Christians can do this too. And I even brought up like, look, if we're underfunded.
That's where you just say, look, we
don't have the resources you do, and we're still pulling this off. Why can't you guys do it? You guys have simpler rituals.
I was gonna say, do you want to know the more like cutting way to go about that? Just tell him, look, our religion's much older than yours, and somehow we kept up with technology.
No, that's what I said. It was like pagans have moved to let's see, if your church is essential, then advancing to the modern era and holding and have an online solution like pagans. But
yeah, far be it from me. Okay, like I think as far as I mean, I could talk about that for a while too. But like staying home, that's all you have to do. The bar is so low, and people still can't do it.
I love staying home.
I love staying home too. I know. Like, well, I'm not in this case. I'm supposed to be in Malaysia doing my field research right now, but that there is a time and a place that will come eventually. Pandemics happen. What are you gonna do? But yeah, like the bar doesn't get lower.
Yeah.
Stay home and do nothing.
I was talking to my grandmother, and she was saying, "I hope you're, being social distancing." And I was like, "Grandma, look, I have been like, fairly antisocial for most of my life. I'm not practicing social distancing. I'm a fucking pro. I will make it through this."
It's just like with me when I had, I don't change a lot of. The only thing that have changed about my behaviors with this, going into the grocery stores physically less. Like I've ordered groceries more than I am normally comfortable with. I normally don't like doing delivery because it costs extra, and I can just get out of the house and do it myself. But not right now.
And it's good to get out of the house every once in a while, except for right now.
The other thing is that since this started, we've planted carrots, potatoes, garlic, okra, and lemon balm, and tomatoes, which is not a thing I imagined myself doing, but what are you going to do? Now we're doing
gardening
that.
Is so sick. I've done gardening. I've got a garden going right now as well with like beans and cantaloupe and watermelon and things like that. And I guess, I'm out there and I'm like, I'm doing the work of my forebearers, working the ground.
Like, I'm sitting there. So we had if we can gush about gardening for a moment.
By all means.
On topic.
So,
on topic gardening.
So there was on this property, actually, Ocean, I don't know if you've been on my property when it's not nighttime. I think it's been nighttime just about.
Actually, I'm trying to recall if I have.
But there is
I have.
There was a
Yes.
dilapidated, fairly large, like 15-foot by 8-foot shed that was on here when we bought the property.
I've never seen the shed.
Okay, cool. It's right next to the house, but nighttime. That shed, we finally got it removed, which of course that means there's
too dark at noon.
Bits of glass and stuff everywhere that we have to take care of. But we got rid of the shed. But if you've ever removed a building and then tried to use the soil under the building for anything, it is a pain because that soil's been compacted down.
It's compacted.
So I've been going out there with a shovel, and it's clay, which there are a lot of vegetables you can grow in clay anyway. Carrots will grow in clay, potatoes will grow in clay, okra will actually grow in clay, so going out there and taking this compacted clay and just taking a shovel to it, just like, I will get food out of you.
Hey, man, this is the agricultural age.
Irrigation will happen today.
I will till this land. That was
oh my god. Okay, so if you've ever
put up a little idol to Freyr on the part far. That's for the heathens. But
if you've ever planted okra, you have to plant it in a row. Like you make a row of okra. Is how you build it. You don't plant single plants like with tomatoes. So just like I have to make a straight row in this rock hard clay, and I don't have tilling equipment. We have a rake and we have a shovel. And I'm just like, I will make this work.
The ultimate gardening challenge.
I feel like this is like one of those like little puzzles you get in like fourth grade brain teasers. You have a rake, a shovel, and now you must make a garden. All right, make it work. It's like, and you got NASA engineers, scratching their head trying to figure this out. Anyway, but to get somewhere back to the topic. Let me try and steer it somewhere. I don't know.
I was talking about tomatoes and other things that we as humans have genetically modified, showing that evolution is in fact possible.
Tomatoes.
Oh, I know. Yeah. The Banana Man had that covered. I can't believe that went as long as it did.
Look. An atheist's worst nightmare is this thing I shoved up my ass last week. Okay. Everything. I killed
call
the
it.
chat.
That's the end of the stream.
I mean, you do you, buddy. It's not here to kink shame bananas.
You don't understand. You take the first banana, you have the peel. The second banana, you grind into a paste, and then you use the paste. Ray, we don't need to hear about what comforts you. We're done.
Ray.
This is not a very appealing conversation.
It's not.
I think that
just put a banana in your ear.
Yeah, I think God knows where it went, but bananas do have a lot of potassium, right?
Oh my God!
Potassium.
Oh wow! You get into the Hall of Fame for that one. Yeah, I have to say,
is that like
it was low hanging fruit?
Oh wow!
I'm sure it was hanging quite handedly.
Ooh.
I can think of a bunch of problems with these jokes.
Oh no!
You okay, Ocean?
This conversation does not bore fruit. We're moving on. Anyway, about accepting premises. We were saying that like when people don't know really what to do when you give them a premise, and I've learned that over the time of being like a polytheist in the scene, is that when you're debating, several of the concepts within Christianity, with me, the game changes a little bit for them because I'll give them several premises that atheists generally won't. For one, I agree that gods exist, genuinely. So when you agree on that premise with a Christian and then they go, wait, like all of a sudden they have to start making atheist arguments because I got more gods than they do.
Yeah.
Or I'll grant them the premise, I'll grant them the resurrection. And then it's like, fine, he came back from the dead. Why should I worship him? And that causes a spin. Because they don't know what to do with that. Because it's easy for me to just be like, sure, all right, came back from the dead. Let's go with that.
And they're like,
now what?
Leafing through that.
It's like, well, now obviously you're a Christian. No, there's no reason to worship that. You just came back from the dead.
So, as somebody who plays D&D, my usual answer to that, actually, Erica, do you play D&D at all?
I do.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
I love D&D.
So we'll all get this joke then. All that told me is that Jesus was a level 2 wizard and he's chosen his class specification.
Yeah, that's I'm sure there are listen, that's
Ocean,
not a
are you okay? What would Jesus' favorite cantrip be? Prestidigitate? Just look, God. It's a miracle. I cleaned it all.
It's got to be that or some kind of like transmogrification.
I don't think that's a cantrip though.
I don't know. I never play wizard is the thing.
That's okay. Wizards don't play wizards either. They just have books and they pretend to play their class.
Let's pop this question back over into creationist debates.
Ocean,
right now it's like witty one-upmanship and it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Ocean, what did you expect this conversation to turn into?
All over the place, which is exactly what it's turned out to be.
Excellent.
I know that we're all just nuts. So let's but
it gets
so to toss the conversation banana to Erica. Debate that you think that you had the best results in, and debate that you believe you had the worst results in.
Oh man. Worst results is easy. Myself and Mark Drisdale chatted with, it was not supposed to be Nathan Thompson, but Nathan Thompson did end up being involved. And I think
who's Nathan Thompson? I'm actually not familiar with him.
Yeah, he's a very vitriolic flat earther who is also a young earther. So
got it.
And that's the thing. Usually, it's kind of funny. Usually when you're chatting with the young earth creationists, you can at least find the common ground of like, hey, at least we're not flat earthers. Right. Usually that's like looming in the background, but you can't do that with Nathan Thompson. And the thing is
the ground is literally different. It's curved.
Yeah, yeah, we're literally on different ground.
Right.
Yeah, very, very flat ground, perhaps held up by pillars of some sort. No one is really quite sure. But yeah, and without that common ground, that it makes connecting quite a bit more difficult. And then also the thing with Nathan Thompson is that he prioritizes like his memery above everything else, which like I'm cool with memery, whatever.
Oh, okay.
But you can't, like Mark would be talking or his partner would be talking or I would be talking and he like pulls a globe out that has like a hole cut in the bottom and like puts it on his head and he's got like sunglasses on it. He's being like a globe head.
That's hilarious, but also it's just
funny.
Memeing. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's very funny. It's just neither the time nor the place. Like, if I wanted to waste my time looking at Nathan Thompson with a globe on his head, I would subscribe to his channel.
Right.
So that would definitely be the worst. And just because even passing very simple landmarks was very difficult. Like, I think there's this agreement when you choose a debate topic that people, your interlocutor at least understands the very basic concepts of they could steel man the very basic concepts of your position.
Right.
That's the hope. But like Austin, Nathan's partner, is sitting there and doesn't understand what a transitional species is. And then when I'm like, please, I try to go at it from multiple angles. And finally I'm like, look, I physically can't explain to you what you're looking for because I don't think you know what you're
That's asking. When they're like, there are no transitional fossils. And you say, okay, well, what about Archaeopteryx?
What is that?
You point.
No, I mean, it's not even that. Like the position was straight up like, why don't
was he requesting transitional forms from you and then not able to describe what he was asking for? Is that what was going on basically?
It was a little bit of that, and then it was a little bit of like, why don't we see transitional forms today? Which of course we do. Transitional.
He has a tailbone.
And he's not even talking structures. He's talking full species. And I was like, all right, everything is transitional because everything is constantly under natural selection.
We have dogs. We have dogs as opposed to wolves. Like
we have dogs.
We have dogs. All caps. Everybody in the chat. We have dogs.
Guys,
all caps right now.
Given H, if we have dogs.
Anti-flat Earth.
This is, F's in the chat, checkmate, flat earther, we got dogs.
We have dogs.
Yeah.
There we go. Here they come.
Yeah, and that was easily the worst experience that I've had, like, on debating, just because it was like, there was no mutual agreement on terms, they didn't understand the basic premises of my position, and finally, they didn't actually come there to have a conversation.
Yeah, they came there to meme and to dominate, and as opposed to have a talk.
Yeah, and it's like, if I do say so myself, I feel like I'm pretty decent at like having a conversation with, like a brick or like a rock. Like I can talk
and
to
chewing
anything.
On pasta, apparently.
I'm sure I'm still getting like yeeted into the stratosphere for that.
For context, there's a video she has on her channel where the whole time she's just munching on pasta and just like, sorry if the crunch is happening. I just have to do this.
Dude, we didn't have. Okay, I can justify that all. I'm still getting flack for it. I can't believe it. People are really hung up on that whole deal. I got 2 emails about that, and my channel was still very small.
Off.
You would think that eventually you would get into pasta, but it's not.
You would think that it's that was easily the worst experience that I had debating. Best, I don't know. Oh, what I was going to say was that G-Man...
I got a couple of points to respond to you before you get into the best one, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say G-Man is one of the guys who's like really big into memery, but like G-Man and I had a very pleasant conversation because at the very least he came there to have a conversation.
Right.
He was there for memes, but he could also still hold the chat. And it's like, that's fine with me. We can manage with that. It's just...
That's the thing, is you have productive conversations with G-Man, which is a feat that has not been before achieved on the internet. And I was legitimately impressed when I heard you were going to be debating G-Man. I was like, why are you wasting your time with these people? And then I go in there because it was just like, how is she going to do? And then you were having like the most calm. Like I've never seen G-Man like that. Like usually he's screaming, throwing his hat around, putting his cat in the screen.
G-Cat.
But
love G-Cat.
But but to expand a little bit on some of the things that you were saying, like I think that defining my favorite nickname that flat earthers have for round earthers is blue baller.
Oh my god,
that's my favorite one. Or you actually believe that we're on a spinning blue ball careening around a nuclear explosion. Like that shit is hilarious.
It's so funny.
But as far as like agreement on terms, like I think with any good debate, what you want to do is like find the least common denominator section of agreement and try and build on that somewhere, wherever the fuck it is. Like, does the universe exist? All right, cool. All right, we got that.
Cool, we're here.
Sometimes you don't agree on anything. And I was on Periscope with Nathaniel of Divine Disbelief for a little while. And he has Christians coming in debating him all the time.
Right.
And I tried to do that with this guy. There was this guy that was a very obstinate creationist type. And I was going through like, where can we agree? Where can we agree? And eventually I just wound up defaulting to memes because I asked him if we could agree that there were consequences to not pooping. And he would not agree with that.
Wow.
I was like, why? With some of those
I was trying to get into causality, and eventually I just got, here's the best way to explain causality. If you don't poop, bad things will take place. And he was like, I'm not willing to agree with that. And I'm like, how do you? I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, yeah, and that's a battle too, right? Like distinguishing good faith from bad faith actors.
Yeah.
And that it really contrasts with like one of the things I said earlier, which is like you try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And if you do that, you will end up discussing with a lot of bad faith actors, and I think that's unfortunately just one of the side effects of like, if you really want to have a good conversation with someone, you gotta grant that they're at least there for the right reasons until they prove you otherwise, and it unfortunately ends in quite a bit of wasted time.
Or quite a bit of waste.
Yeah. Or quite a bit of waste coming out very quickly.
But when you do that, though, you do sometimes have those productive conversations. You can sometimes get somebody to give some ground that they otherwise wouldn't.
Right, and you know, and it depends on the person, right? I mean, a lot of people ask me like, what's the point? Why do I debate creationists? Why do any of us debate creationists or people that we feel their minds aren't going to be changed, wherever the subject may be? And like I said earlier, the answer is very rarely to change their mind. Like obviously the hope is that aspects of their mind might be changed. But the reality that I think we all come to terms with is that we're not going to change that person's mind in that moment. The best you can do is sow the seeds for curiosity. And like, okay, well, maybe I should look more into that. And I say quite frequently in my debates, I'm like, look, I encourage you to look into this for yourself. Don't take my word for it, you know? I'm just some gal on the internet. Like, I can show you all the sources, but unless you double check me, who knows what they actually say? Maybe I'm just totally bullshit.
I'll check the Bible and see.
I have had.
Yeah, precisely.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so everybody here is familiar with Braxton Hunter, right?
Oh yes.
Okay, so
yes.
I did not make a video.
There is.
You can't.
There is a thing that I say in most of my episodes, which is. Like, literally, when I say a thing, I will go, the source for that is in the description. Please go check the description. And then there are other times where I'll say, look, if you don't believe what I'm saying about a source, please go fact check me. Go make sure that I am presenting this correctly.
Go do the thing. Yep.
Braxton was like, oh, Sir is here, makes himself out to be an authority on these things. But then he asks his audience to fact check him. I'm like, okay, I understand that personal integrity might be lost on you, but how could you not get this?
And
that's weird. Braxton is usually an honest agent.
Yeah, and like, that was admittedly a low blow.
Like every once in a while, he does something where I'm like, Braxton, what are you doing? But yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the difficult things, and of course I speak about creationists because that's typically who I debate, but is that you really have to have your sources for just about everything. Like, I've gotten very good at I mean, my background is in academia, so it's like I'm
making a bibliography comes as second nature at that point.
Yeah, it comes secondhand. Yeah, it's very secondhand nature. That's just alphabetized. Like, I've got works of art, but yeah, even minute claims, like I could sit there and I could be like, all right, let's talk about some problems with kinds coming off of the Ark, right? Noah's Ark lands on Mount Ararat. Let's
begin with the definition of kind.
Well, sure, yeah. Which of course we still don't have. Not anything.
What are you talking about?
When you're nice to
the definition of kind is a clear as water.
Dogs produce dogs.
Dogs produce dogs, and they never produce non-dogs.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we could go down that route too.
Isn't that something that like evolutionists agree with?
Evolution.
As well? Like,
yeah, that's the concept.
Oh wow,
Ocean, I hate you so much.
That was her.
that one was me. I take credit.
She did that. That wasn't me. I didn't do it. We have a competitor on the pun side here.
Whenever somebody says that, whenever somebody does the whole dogs never produce non-dogs, you go, yeah. Do you know what a nested hierarchy is? Because if you look at if you look at a nested hierarchy, if we're talking about,
is that like a Russian doll?
Actually, yes.
It is very
So when you say humans were monkeys and somebody goes, no, that's not the case, and you go, well, hold on, let's think. What are monkeys? They are this group here. What are apes? Okay, they are a subgroup of that. What are great apes? Okay, they are a subgroup of that. There
are apes that are significantly accomplished.
Humans are a subgroup of great apes. There's never a point where we stopped being apes, great apes, or monkeys, and further up, there's never a time where we stopped being eukaryotes.
Believe it or not, we're also eukaryotes.
There's never a point where we stopped being eukaryotes. A eukaryote did not produce a non-eukaryote. We're still eukaryotes.
Right, and that gets complicated because typically Kent or individuals who are kind of Kent's ilk, they'll say, well, at some point something had to become something that it wasn't, and that's when you kind of have to take the ground that it's like, phylogenetics is a game of increasing specifics, right? So the categories stay the same, but categories are added on the ends, almost like a fractal that continues upward. So it's like you just keep adding further specification. Like we've got, I said to Kent one time, there's this fascinating experiment that was done in, I believe, 1989. That's the one. Where they took fruit flies, right? And they separated the fruit flies out by feeding them sucrose and maltose, and they got different colors, and then they put them back together, and they would only mate within their colors, aka it's reproductive isolation. And there were other minute, I believe, morphologic changes.
You start getting ring species after a certain point when you do this, too, if memory serves.
Right, yes. And of course the answer is yes, but they're still flies. And you could say, look, you could have those flies, those exact fruit flies keep reproducing for 6 million years, and then you could have, some kind of large arthropod that's the size of a bus and has, 300 legs instead of 6. It's still a dipteran, but you've probably added further categories of subspecies and
because like you take that fly, you put it into a more oxygen-rich environment. There's going to be larger flies that will start to breed from that, because in an oxygen-rich environment, they can grow bigger, because that's how we know that bugs work. And as they start to grow bigger, we might, if Kent tries to say, well, that's no longer a fly, it still is, though. Like, every single part of that still is. Even if it's 5 times the size, it's still that.
It doesn't matter what you could have, you could have dogs continue to evolve until they look almost identical to humans. It's still a canid. Obviously, what has happened is after, canid...
Speaking of furries.
Speaking of cat girls and, neon dogs, you're just getting those further classifications. So you might add a subspecies onto the end of Familiaris, and I have Canis lupus sapiens, for example. I don't know. Let's say that you did that.
Assuming that dog gained sapiens, then yeah, we'd have to do that.
Something along those lines. And I mean, now, if you keep up with Standing for Truth stuff, or Nathaniel Jeanson, who works for Answers in Genesis, you'll know that they have accepted nested hierarchies and, of course, claim that creationism predicted it all along, which, of course, it didn't. And no one can.
All of the kinds of the kind thing. Yes.
Yeah. It's wild. I mean, they'll straight up say because humans design amphibious vehicles, we should expect to see transitional species as a design. That's not
how that works. So, us designing. Granted, I understand this, but I'm gonna run through it real quick for the audience's sake and also for my sanity's sake for a minute here.
Yes, by all means, get angry.
Because a human built a thing which is not bioorganic, which does not produce like gametal production, does not do any of the things required for evolution, but because we made it, we should expect this separate fucking category over here, which has nothing to do with design. We should expect that category to suddenly start making transitional forms because we were able to build something in this category over here. I wasn't aware. Now, granted, to say that I wasn't aware that creationists engaged in category error is a lie. But that specific one is new. That specific one is new.
It first popped up in this book, Replacing Darwin by Nathaniel Jeanson.
That book.
So it popped up in that. That book is somewhat infamous, in my opinion. It's very terrible in a lot of ways. A lot of data omission, as far as I'm aware, that went along with all of that. But of course, the the hallmark of that is like I believe the idea is like, okay, humans were made in God's image, and so they design in a similar way. So since we design transitional things, we should expect God to do the same thing, which of course is strange in and of itself. But you could take it to the next level, and you could say, all right, in his image, so. Yeah, you could take it to the next level, and you can say, okay, but transitional species and indeed vestigial structures in modern organisms all have redundancy in their genomes, which we don't see in amphibious vehicles. Like you won't see, let's say you wanted to design a transitional species from a plane to a car. At some point, the car is probably going to have useless rutting wings out to the side. They don't do anything, but there was no, negative, impact on the selection, so it just kept them around. But But we don't find that in things like amphibious vehicles from a boat to a car. There's no vestigial propeller.
Yeah, we didn't just
there's nothing added on there that isn't there for a reason.
Don't you know vestigial organs don't exist?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
we whales find the real don't have hip bones
all the time. Shh.
Hey, that's for their banging. That's what we found out, by the way. All of them.
God put them there for the sex.
And now I'm thinking about...
Allegedly, the ladies are...
Please tell me that there's somebody in this group, so not Ocean, who has seen ReZero. Because now I'm just imagining...
So not Ocean? Yeah, no, exactly.
Now I'm just imagining... So for anybody in the chat who's seen ReZero, I'm imagining the genocidal, memory-wiping white whale fucking now, and my brain is bleeding. Just...
The funny thing about that is many cetaceans that are like really big like that, they actually require a third party to actually get it on.
Arc in the chat.
Because they need to flip upside down. So you know what I mean? There has to be a buddy underneath to push that one up.
And the hip bones
There's some very funny
that.
diagrams out there. Yeah, the hips do not do it all. You need a real wingman for that kind of business.
Something hipsters.
So Seth in the chat just screamed in all caps. Oh no!
I saw
fucking
it.
Why?
Straight up.
Why the freaking hell?
In two separate. Oh no! Fucking why, sir?
Why the freaking hell?
Why the freaking hell? Yeah, there we go.
Well!
The last thing that I wanted to comment on before we go into your best debate was the memeing thing, which I've noticed that there are some times when people go into a debate and they'll put on what I call meme armor. Which is if they just start memeing.
This is the Fuentes thing.
You'll never engage with their
Fuentes
argument.
Thing.
Yeah. Fuentes definitely does meme armor a lot. Where instead of engaging with the argument, he'll just meme about it and then move on. And it's just an appeal to confirmation bias and that's it. So putting on like the globe on your head and all that shit, it's just like, okay, well I can't engage with that. You're not giving me anything to counter. Like I can't address this.
Right, and the goal is obviously to get a rise.
Right.
Either out of you as the interlocutor, or
just
perhaps
not
the
a rise
audience.
Out of the whale,
and
please.
the way to manage it is you got to be like, man, dude, like, are we going to talk or what? Like, are you just, you want to waste my time, or do we want to have a conversation?
Exactly.
I accept that as a concession,
to me,
or...
I've learned a way of calling it. It's aggressive, but a way of calling it out is to just like directly address it and be like, behind every armor of memery is a coward, like going into that kind of shit. But if you're trying to have like a more productive, like nice conversation, and be like engaged in a way that's a little bit more palatable, it's incredibly difficult to engage with that because there's not really anything to fucking go on. Like it winds up being, okay, well now they're making jokes, and you can start making jokes back at them, but then now the conversation is quickly devolving.
Yeah, I think, my strategy with Nathan was to appeal to his partner, who wasn't doing that kind of nonsense. If it was the two of us, just 1 versus 1, I probably just would have, went to the moderator, James, and been like, look, man, like, I feel like I'm wasting my time, and I feel like everyone who's watching is also having their time wasted. Like, if he wants to meme it up, people can go see that shit on his channel. But I've got better things to do.
We're here to have a productive conversation.
Well, we can have a clown commercial break every 5 minutes or so, but we can, I'd like to keep most of the conversation on topic if we can and stop the memes.
Yeah, and just keep it light and breezy. Like, my advice to people out there is, like, the second you get pissed off in an argument, getting heated and passionate is one thing. Getting angry is another.
Yeah, because then that's the, I think when someone starts memeing and you get angry at it, like then they've brought you out into a game in which they're probably better at you.
Sinker. Yeah, hook, line, they got you on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's done. I totally agree, and that's the moment too where you really got to take it, as difficult as it is, because sometimes that shit is so irritating. You got to take the high ground, and you got to be like, look, I don't know what to tell you. If he's gonna sit there with a globe on his head, then I got better shit to do than this. Right,
and so sometimes they meme against the wrong person. Sometimes they'll meme against somebody who's genuinely better at memeing than they are.
Yeah. You don't want to be. There's only one thing worse than being memed at, and that's being the loser in a meme off.
Right. When you started it, like.
Yeah. Exactly. Don't take on. You fight off more than you could chew.
That was not meant to be a thing that happened, but it did.
So someone is saying, will you ever have another debate with Cupcake? Have I had a single debate with Cupcake? I think the closest thing we had was when I showed up on your stream, and then
it was on Hammered Out. It was on the Science Falsely So Called thing.
Yeah. No, it's like he was on, and then I came on, and then he fucked off. And I wasn't able... I engaged with him like a little bit, and he promptly hung up. But I wouldn't call that a debate. I'd call that like a light engagement, a skirmish, if you will.
It wasn't. It was much less a fling and more so not even a thing.
Yeah, a brush with death on the marketplace of ideas.
We danced.
You are where
briefly.
the marketplace of ideas dies, my friend.
Yeah. Well, one can only hope.
Also, for anybody who wants some whale action, there we go.
Yeah, please. I know you found the diagram. It's really good.
This is the white whale from ReZero for all the horrible things to happen.
No, this is a bad image in my head now. Stop it.
You will never be able to unsee this.
Cirrus, no.
Can't stop it.
Damn it.
Now just imagine this whale. By the way, this whale can clone itself in the canon of ReZero.
Now
just imagine these whales with those hip bones doing the do, creating whale babies.
I'm ready for
there is one too many uwus in the chat in response to that.
Guys, give me an H in chat for whale banging.
Oh, God.
Please give an F to pay respects to Ocean. I'm out.
Yeah, F mega in the chat, ladies and gents. God.
And there's people putting G in the chat. I don't know why.
Because they don't want this.
Do not
want.
Yeah, G is just the imposed. Please, God, no.
FHF. Why? Oh, we have you guys are. I don't know.
This is the most mixed the chat has ever been on the G and H dichotomy.
Yeah, exactly. It is. There is no like coherent construction of consistency that can be built out of what the chat is doing right now. There's no agreement.
Yeah, this is the type A, type B personality split. Type A personalities, they want to see, that.
So, moving on. Best debate that you've had.
It's very easy to pick I couldn't tell you the best. The one that got the best reception was with Kent.
But since he's a name, right?
Yeah, I think it's just because he's a name.
Yeah.
Performance-wise, I'm not sure. I mean, I had a discussion with Praise I Am That I Am on Modern Day Debate on human evolution, and if I do say so myself, it was something of a trouncing, but mostly just because he didn't know what he was talking about. Like you never want to go into a debate. Like I would never get into a debate with someone outside of my field,
right?
It's just not my league. I wouldn't know what I was talking about. And so I think that's kind of what happened in that one. But it was also a bit like shooting fish in the barrel. Like I don't think it was a win by anything of my own merit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I would be interested to know, like, people who have watched some or some of my debates what they think. I would be interested to know what they think.
What did you like about your Ken Hovind debate? We might as well talk about it because we're going to want to hear about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you. What level of swearing can I do on this channel? Okay, I was fucking prepared for that one.
There you go.
I was on it because that was the first debate that I did, and like I said, I wanted to get into the debate community because I enjoy debating, and so I reached out to his secretary, which was still Rhonda at the time. Wherever she is, may God rest her soul. She's not dead. I just miss her. She was great. The current secretary she's not very nice, but
harder to deal with.
So I hopped in and we had to reschedule twice, and so I had all this time to prepare, and I was like, I consumed more Kent Hovind media than anyone has any right to. And I was ill. By the end, my boyfriend at the time was like, holy shit. He walked through the room and he was like, I just felt like 6 of the gyri of my brain just flatten out just by listening to that. And I was like, yeah, well, try listening to, whatever, 12 hours worth of it. But because I was well prepared for it, everything he brought up, I was like, I know that. And you're going to say that. I'm ready for that. Like, because here's the key with creationists. they're very, very, very good at bringing up things that sound like they're true or scientific. But then, 20 minutes of looking into it will show you that it's a misinterpretation or an outright misrepresentation. Like probably 9 times out of 10, at least 8 times out of 10.
What's a good example? Like just.
Oh man. Okay, my favorite.
First, I'm gonna hurt you. The subliminal whale crap.
I was actually gonna say that I actually have an example of one of the ones that sounds like really legit until you look into it. The entire field of phrenology.
Yeah, phrenology. Yeah,
what is phrenology?
It is measuring.
I am not a Kent Hovind
this isn't just a Kent. This isn't necessarily a Kent Hovind thing. I'm
not even
a racist thing.
I watched Thunderfoot's videos on creationism back in the day.
Way back then,
right back when that was happening.
Yeah.
But when you looked at he never covered that.
So
and if Aaron Ra did, I didn't see it.
So phrenology was the study of skull shapes insofar as they related to human IQ.
Oh,
yeah.
Duh.
This was...
Yeah.
Duh. Yeah, that you're talking about the stuff. Okay.
This is like...
I know what that is. I just didn't know the fucking name. But you're talking about the shit that was used as a justification for racism.
Yeah.
All throughout the 19th century. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But creationists use that?
Well,
no.
There are some
I
creationists who do, but they're usually on like the far right side of the political spectrum.
Well, Kent will bring up skull stuff, but only I don't think it's a racial thing. Like you can say listen, you can say a lot about Kent Hovind. He has not said anything overtly racist that I am aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Other crimes against humanity have, of course, been committed, but nothing directly racist. One thing that I like to bring up a lot that I think is just a sheer misrepresentation is something Standing for Truth brings up all the time, which is, so if you're a creationist, you believe that everything is intentional, because God wouldn't make a mistake. And so part of that, creationists had a really hard time with the concept of junk DNA. So this is the idea that most of the human genome is kind of redundant and it's evolutionary leftovers, which you would expect, right? That's what you would expect, is that most of the human genome is probably not really doing too much stuff. And the way that they can test this is they do these things called knockout tests on mice, which is they'll take a mouse and they'll knock a ton of the genes out so that they just don't work, and they just see what happens.
And if the mouse still mouses, then junk.
Exactly, right. And very frequent, they could do, I believe the number is like 50-ish% they've knocked out, at least in the current test, and the mouse did just fine, had offspring, it was A-okay. So, but there was this project.
Don't let that thing out into the wild.
Yeah, definitely don't. Because that's the thing. We don't know the long-term, impact of that epigenetically. So it's like there could be other things going on. But there was this project in like 2012-ish called ENCODE. And they were basically doing all this work for like mapping the genome and all these kinds of things. Not the Human Genome Project, but like other genome-y stuff. And they came out at the end and they were like, the genome. It's 80% functional. 80% of the human genome is functional.
Yeah, it's the same thing they did with the Tech Times article.
Oh, that means special creation.
Right. They're like,
there's this obviously designed.
Ignoring the 20% of the genome that is non-functional.
Right, I was about to say, we are perfectly designed with 20% waste.
Right, and that's not even the worst part. If you do even a bit of cursory looking into this, you'll find out that the scientific community, and by that I mean mostly the genetics community, overwhelmingly rejected ENCODE's definition of function, because their definition of function is simply that it is transcribed, at which we transcribe, quite a bit of DNA stuff.
The fact that
what is transcribing?
Doesn't that just mean that it can
help me out with what the objection is?
Yeah, so the idea is that if it has the typical definition of function is, does it impact phenotype? So phenotype is what shows up, right? So your genotype is the full genome. And
they moved the goalpost in making their assessment. So they went from phenotype representation, which is going to be any sort of physical representation for everybody playing the home game. And then when you get into transcribing, what is the distinction between that? Because I don't know what transcribing means.
So for transcription, it's kind of like what you were just hinting at, right? It's like looking at the genotype it's kind of complicated, right? So there's this concept of epigenetics, right? Where it's like things can be expressed differently.
They've used epigenetics as an argument against cell evolution as well, strangely.
Yeah, it's not. They do it with ERVs. They say all the ERVs are functional. There's like a handful of them that there are. But the idea is that ENCODE was looking at genotype to make it very simple, and phenotype is what matters as far as what it, like, actually,
as far as what we would consider functional.
Right. That's typically what we hear. And so there was this large outcry amongst the community of geneticists who were like, hey, listen, you can't go around saying that the genome is 80% functional when it's not. And some time passed, and then, several members of ENCODE were like, yeah, we were pretty loose with our definition of function. Yeah. So after that, Rahr et al. In 2017 came out with a paper that put a cap on human genome functionality at around 25%. And then they were like, the reality is that the functionality of the human genome is around 12-ish%. Then there was another paper that came out very, very recently that I haven't had a chance to look at that essentially was like, look, you can't really put a cap on functionality because of the way that population genetics works. It has no bearing on how much of the genome is functional. It's just saying you can't necessarily put a cap on it.
Right.
And so that's where we're at right now. So basically, no, the genome isn't 80% functional. But if you're in a conversation with a creationist, they might say, yeah, except scientists, evolutionists say that, that you used to say there was junk DNA, but then ENCODE came out and said 80% is functional. If you know nothing about ENCODE,
it sounds like it's a nail in the coffin at that point. But again, there's a couple.
Sirs, why am I still the face?
What are you talking about? Look at the stream.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at the stream. Okay, it's not live right now.
You're not the face. What are you talking about?
Am I the sun now?
Totally not gaslighting you on live air. No.
God.
But so a couple of things. One, it's the same thing as the freaking as when the Tech Times article happened, when Tech Times was like, "Hey, look, we had a sudden explosion of species." I think they said like 100,000 years ago in Tech Times, and creationists jumped on that and said, "Aha! You see, a sudden explosion of species happened." I'm like, "Yeah." And how old did you say?
It's 100,000 years ago, which is very different from 6. How old did you say the Earth was?
Okay, cool. And you saw that said 98% of species, not 100% of species.
Well, the rest of the
they're
science
literally
is wrong.
just going. So, pretend that this is a straw, and they're just like, "I'll get it. I'll fucking get it. I'll fucking get it."
Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, typically they've got a problem with reading the abstract
and only reading the abstracts.
And then calling it a day. But on top of that, there's a conceptual basis that's also lost. So you look at a paper like that, right? And you think, oh, wow. On the surface level, you're like, that sounds kind of impressive. And it is very interesting. But then you have to consider the question, okay, from a conventional science perspective, what is the average rate of species turnover? Is it something like that? Would it make quite a bit of sense that every 100,000 years there's a distinction enough, however small it may be, from the species we have now to the species we had 100,000 years ago? What would that look like? So you can't take these kinds of things on the surface level, but when you're in a debate, you have no choice.
This is the reason that the Gish Gallery becomes so effective in debates like this. It's why Dwayne Gish got popular doing it, because you can't address everything they say. You can't possibly do it.
You just put points on the board.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like, you're not going to be able to do this because it's a lot easier to be stupid than it is to correct stupid.
It is, and that's why an opening statement is so important, because it lays the foundation for the conversation to come. And this is kind of a strategy that I use, but it's like I put gotchas, quote unquote, in my opener very frequently. There are a couple of cool papers out there that are statistics papers that are like, look, if we're looking at this from a statistical standpoint, like and trying to assess what are the odds with the given value that separate ancestry explains all of life on Earth instead of a universal common ancestry, and it's like ridiculously small. So you show a paper like that, and that's effectively
which is funny because then they will use that same type of methodology to argue for fine tuning.
Yes, but the problem with that is, and I've seen those fine-tuning papers before. I've seen those many times. And the interesting thing is that I have yet to see a paper by a creationist or proposed by a creationist that gives very small odds for life that takes into account natural selection. almost always it's what are the odds you could roll a dice, and each protein organization or whatever is a number on the die,
and
the die has like a trillion sides.
1.77777 repeating is what they end up with.
You end up with this really small number, as would be expected. What are the odds what would be the odds that you slam, on a keyboard and write a book? Like, it's very small. But what if you had a corrective measure where every time you correctly type a word,
saves it. That word is now saved.
Exactly.
It's like
right.
The way that I generally handle, because I've had somebody comment on like, why don't I use the puddle analogy when dealing with fine tuning? Maybe it's just because I do competitive card games. For me, it's a card game analogy. I'm like, okay, let's take a deck of cards. We're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Weiss, Hearthstone, LOR, whatever. There's so many of them now. I'm just going to grab a random one. What are the odds that I'm going to grab any hand out of this deck? Well, the odds are generally, if we accept one of every card in a 40-card deck, we're sitting at like 1 in 42,000 for any given hand I can pull out of this deck, which is really low. Not quite as low as the odds they're giving for stuff in those papers, but it's still really, really low. And you go, okay, so let's take this hand. What is special about this hand? What is special about the hand that I just drew? Well, they would answer nothing. But something has to be special about it. The odds were low. The odds were really low that I drew this hand.
Yeah, there you go.
But so what's special about it? Nothing special about. What are you talking about? Okay, so let's lay out your argument. Well, life is very special because the chances were really low. Fuck!
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you were saying there's a gotcha that you're in your presentation of it as well. That there.
Yeah.
Where you hiding the there's a trap to be sprung.
Well, the idea is basically like I'll lay I used the statistics one just because it was the one off the top of my head. But my favorite gotcha for creationism, the one that I think really just OKOs the entire situation, is the problem of heat and radiometric decay, which is kind of strange because my whole deal is anthropology and zoology and things like that.
Not so much geology.
As excellent. Yeah, not so much. And as excellent as all those arguments are, the one that I've seen zero, big goose egg zero, creationists, including Answers in Genesis, have a real solution for, and Answers in Genesis actually admits to not having a solution. They actually appeal to miracles on this one. Is cramming in all the radiometric decay heat from 4.8 billion year old rock into 6,000 years. Because as any element decays, you release a little bit of heat. And because the half-life of some of the elements that we have on this earth is very, very high, it's not a problem if you got a long time. But if you want to take all that heat and cram it into 6,000 years, and realistically, because they think all the radiometric dating stuff that makes their earth look very old, well, they think it all happened during the flood. So really, you don't have 6,000, you have 4,400. So if you were to do that, if you were to cram, and they also think all the tectonic plates moved into their current position and all of these different things. If you were to cram in...
The flood is like hand wavy. And this is how we got things that they are now.
This conversation happened so many times when I've the few times that I've been willing to engage creationists, which isn't as often as I should, that you usually get, these are probably answers you've seen, where they'll go... Either they'll appeal strictly to carbon dating, and they'll only talk about carbon dating. So when you talk about radiometric, they kind of slip around. They go, well, I don't know about all that, but I know carbon dating can't even get this far. Yeah. No,
here's your gotcha. There's $247 billion a year put into finding natural gas and oil and things like that, and they use evolutionary presumptions to find that gas. Basically, they have to say, all right, well, we find most of the oil in the Carboniferous, so you really got to know where the Carboniferous is in the geologic column.
And there are churches with money in places like ExxonMobil. They literally have to get money from the science that proves them wrong.
There's that. And here's the long story short, right? Here's the gotcha. Here it really is. If you were to take all of the heat released from the friction of the plates moving from Pangea, which everyone agrees, and even creationists used to be a thing. They think it was the pre-flood formation. We know that it's very, very old, as well as cramming all that radiometric decay into that 4,400 years. You have enough heat that during Noah's flood, you are going to, this is great, you're going to vaporize the crust of the earth 28 times over. I'm talking the granitic crust of the earth will be vaporized by all that heat.
So that would solve a lot of our current problems.
On the low end, it would. On the low end of that,
national debt would be solved.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no more taxes. It's great. We don't have to deal with the next shitty election. It's going to be awesome.
Right.
On the low
Student
end,
debt canceled.
Yeah, it's no big deal. On the low end, you're going to vaporize the oceans a couple dozen times over. On the high end of that heat release, if you go with like the
we are now in iron core and nothing else.
Yeah, you're literally. I'm not kidding. It's something like a couple of trillion hydrogen bombs worth of energy in order to like actually. I mean, you got to think the difference between a million years and a billion is like. What is it? It's something like a million seconds is 11 days and a billion seconds is like 33 years or something along those lines. So it's like those numbers are vastly different. And we're not talking about a million versus a billion. We're talking about 6,000 versus 4.8
Sirius in the chat
billion.
just said, would the mantle still exist? And I think I have an answer for you. Yes, the mantle would still exist over there and a bit there and there and...
Yeah. You might find some in Saturn, a little in Jupiter.
A few bits have been vaporized by the sun just because it has enough of a gravitational pull for that.
Noah's like standing on Triton and is like, and what we got here.
Like, damn, where'd the kangaroos go?
This is not where I expected.
Guys, where's Yamcha? Oh, he's there. And there.
And the heat coming off of the Earth is like enough to.
We have now turned the Earth into the weapon against the aliens, everyone. The Creationists did it.
Yeah. There's nothing left. Yeah, so in my opening statement, I tend to bring stuff like that up. Like, all right, we know radiometric dating is a thing. It's literally just a law of physics. You can't really disagree with
who wrote
radiometric
those laws?
dating. They'll bring up things like discordant dates, and then you can bring up the fact that this is something that most people don't know, but that if you do a little bit of digging, you can find out. A discordant date is considered discordant if it's off by like a million years, which means you could get a date of like 3.34 billion and another of 3.33 billion, and that's considered discordant. Even though they both still say, and the ballpark is 3.3.
At that point, either answer is if they go, which one's the right one? Well, it doesn't fucking matter which one's the right one because they're both older than 6,000.
It's not 6,000. It's not.
So 6,000. Yeah, and I knew a creationist named Jay Weil, and he would debate all the time on this issue, radiometric dating specifically. I hadn't heard him address this, but he had a PhD in nuclear physics. And was arguing that the universe was 10,000 years old. He was like, I don't think it's 6.
Yeah,
I think
we call
like
that
10.
We call that.
And he thinks that solves everything.
Ocean.
Yeah.
Well, he produces books for homeschooling.
Yes. That's called personal financial incentive.
Yeah, the weird thing is that it's like creationists have this idea, and AIG does this a lot. It's like, okay, they have a geologist. They have two geologists. You've got Steve Austin, and you've got Andrew Snelling, right? And they're like, look, geologists agree with us.
The ones on your payroll do. Yes, of course they do.
Yeah, they're like, to do?
It's like
somebody who learned from Jay Weil's books in high school is in the chat and is freaking out going, no!
That's like there's a guy freaking... It's like, let's call AIG an abusive parent for a minute for this analogy, right? It's like AIG goes, look, I'm not abusive. Even my kids agree with me. Isn't that right, George? That's basically what's happening here.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, if you go and you look at Snelling's work, in his like secular work, he uses conventional science. So you're kind of like, I wonder. And you got Todd Wood, who's like, yeah, he's all but basically cool with evolution and things like that. He's like, yeah, but I still believe the Earth is young. And you can be like, yeah, but why? And he's like, like that's kind of the response.
Because it makes me a paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta wonder. That's and again,
there's good money in Christianity, and in creationism. In creationism specifically, there does seem to be a lot of money in it.
I mean, the Creation Museum is not cheap, and they've managed to do a whole new renovation to it. They're getting that money from somewhere.
Well, yeah, but there's also like the Ark Encounter, which seems to be. Well, but it's not doing very well. by comparison, I don't know why. If the Creation Museum can do well, and the quality of the exhibits there are not on par with what Ken Ham
So the answer to that is actually very simple, Ocean. The answer to that is overhead. Have you seen what the Creation Museum looks like compared to the Ark Encounter? The overhead.
Oh, you're saying like the investment level is low, but they got.
So it's not just the investment level is low. Your overhead isn't just your investment. Your overhead is your maintenance. It is your staffing. All of that stuff.
Like Ken's not even paying for lifeguards. So,
I mean, they're gonna come back. They had a great time. No, so when you look at the Creation Museum,
that was
when
ridiculous,
you look at the Creation Museum,
no, dude,
the overhead
so
for
bad.
that place is ridiculously low. They can staff that place with 3 to 4 people. And that's like gets it running perfectly fine for tours and everything. The Ark Encounter is not quite the same. It's a much larger area.
So Ken Ham was like, I'm gonna make a fucking theme park, because he wanted to do Bible Land. Like he wanted the Ark Encounter to be the first of like 30
Come
more
here
exhibits.
and let's talk about.
God.
Like there was going to be an amphitheater and a dinosaur
Can we get an
park
exhibit on that potion
like,
from
all this
Numbers?
other stuff.
On how that works? The abortion potion? Can we get an exhibit for that? Just have that as a fucking ride. And this is what happens when she's an adulterer. The thigh rots.
You got a little mason jar that says "Baby Be Gone" or something. I don't know. This is terrible.
I know he wanted to do like a Tower of Babel thing at one point.
Yeah, he did. There was several exhibits that he had planned. He had
if there's one thing Ken has, it's creativity.
No,
let me find like a full there's concept art of the whole park. Like
you can say a hell of a lot about Ken Ham and AIG, but they know how to look professional. They and that's what makes them so dangerous. Okay,
he is the missing link. The reason that this is my headcanon now. The reason that Ken Ham is a creationist is because he's scared the scientists are going to pick him apart because he's the missing link.
They're gonna find out. Yeah, he's insane.
He's just gonna be like, Lucy was my wife. Why?
That's my wife, you monster. Yeah, Ken's an oddball. He's I don't know. I mean, the thing is that he was nice enough in his chat with Bill, I guess. But the thing is like, I don't know. I can't get over the whole thing where it's like nothing would change his mind. Like I can't get over that. Nice. That's so sad. Imagine having that opinion. You know,
the thing with someone like Ken is that they can sound nice via professionalism, but they are insidious, and that's kind of my problem with that whole slew of people in general, is that they sound nice and they sound convincing, and that's how they gather a flock. And then when you actually pick apart what they say, they default to things that are very hand-wavy, like trying to cram all the fucking radiometric decay into the flood. And then when you actually like dig even deeper to some of the other opinions they have informed of the Bible, you end up getting into some really dicey territory, like particular opinions where women are concerned, ideas about slavery, stuff like that. You end up getting into some really, really dicey categories, and that's kind of where my issue is, because my issue doesn't begin and end with creationism. My issue is that I view creationism not quite analogously, but a little bit analogously to like a gateway drug, where you start with this, and then there are other things that you end up having to accept once you've accepted this foundation. And those things I find as social ills. When there's people, I'm sure you've gotten the comments before, where people are like, why does it matter what they believe? And like, well, because their beliefs are informing their actions.
And the thing is like, I part of why, some people have said to me, like you're very nice to creationists, and it's like, well, yes, I see, I was a creationist when I was like in middle school, so it's like a lot of them, there is a portion of creationists that I think are genuinely just they've just been kind of deceived, or they're ignorant, one or the other. Not just ignorant in a mean way, but literally just ignorant of the facts. Yeah, but on the flip side of that coin, it's like, if I did debate things that were more along the lines of women's rights and egalitarianism for LGBTQ people and all of the races, I think I would be a lot meaner, because there's not very much that I feel like I could really tolerate in that.
And I've had that happen.
Idea.
You wind up with stuff with consequences that are really bad.
And it's just not, I mean, I really can't wrap my brain around some of the vitriol that comes out of that.
You should have a conversation with G-Man on slavery.
He'd willingly be your
God.
slave.
Listen, G-Man and I are on good terms, and I know what his thoughts are about that. I don't want to, one conversation.
You seen him talk to Matt Dillahunty about it? It's great.
That's so dicey, you know, I mean, and the thing is the worst part about it, especially with like the rampant homophobia, or like women are subservient, or slavery is fine, like all of that kind of stuff, is that it's all under the guise of this is fine.
That's,
you know,
that's
it's and that's so scary to me, you know. I can't imagine.
That said, we do have about 5 minutes more for this, and then we have to get into super chats before we close out stream. So with that said, out of all the videos you've produced, because you bounce between the shorter, like 6 to 10 minutes, like let's talk about this interesting topic, and then the 35-minute, okay, let's dunk on this guy videos.
Ooh.
Which of those two types of videos do you prefer more?
Visual.
The dunkathon, or the informative, like, calm 10-minute lecture?
Oh man, it depends on the topic, because the thing is so I'm doing this one, I'm kind of in process of like, you know, dunking on Genesis apologetics, and like I find those a bit of a slog to get through, just because there's so much wrong, and it ends up being, and I'm doing them on the fly. I really like making well-researched, like, kind of nays of creationists, like roasting them on more classical issues. Like I had a blast with that chimp-human genome similarity video that was very recent, that was quite long. That said, my passion lies, I mean, obviously my career is going to be in primatology, so my passion lies in talking about things like actual science,
as
cool
opposed
science.
To debunking wrong science.
Exactly. So when I do debunks, when I do debunks, it's mostly, I try to put a little bit of like general education in there as well. So like if we're going to roast creationists for being bad at radiometric dating, then you're at least going to get an education on what radiometric dating is. Because damn it, if I had to learn it, you have to learn it too.
One of the reasons why some of my videos get really long. The video that I'm releasing tomorrow, I have an entire 3-minute section where I'm going into the history of how the KJV was written, and I'm just like, I had to learn it for this. Yeah. You have to know the editing errors of Erasmus.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is that it's almost like it sets the stage, right? Like you can't understand how ridiculous it is that they, you know, get this, you know, that they draw the line between these two hominids as humans and apes, if you don't understand the basis of like why we know that the lineage is the way that it is. So it's like, as far as what's more fun to make, I have more fun making the dunking on creationist videos, but I have more fun writing for the science videos. So yeah, because I always get copyright claimed for the science ones, because I always like rip cool clips. And then I get, and my philosophy is like, all right, is it worth the like $6 in revenue that I would make to like take out a cool video to Alec? No,
for that.
It's not worth that.
So
yes, please do.
It's like the 13-second
limit doesn't matter. The limit actually doesn't matter. All that matters is that the system caught it. The system can catch anything like 6 seconds and lower. What you can do, though, this is what I do with my music, actually. When you have your clip, slow it down to 90 or 85% speed. It especially works if the clip doesn't have a lot of audio behind it that's like words. Because music tends to not warp that much until you hit 60%. Drop it to about 85% speed, drop your video in, and then see if it gets claimed. Like, do it with a video you've already done, and just drop it in as unlisted and see if the audio system grabs it. If you have the same luck that I do, and I'm a larger channel, the system tries to hit me more, you shouldn't actually have to worry about copyright claims that much there. Slowing down stuff tends to legally make it transformative, but it does make it to where YouTube's system doesn't auto-grab it as easily.
But what you're doing is transformative anyway, because you're making valuable commentary on it. So you're within the bounds of fair use.
Well, and that's what
at the end of the day.
I appeal it every time, and I'm always like,
and you win the appeal, but in order to
you
not
can save
go
yourself a headache
hell.
by just slowing it down sometimes and doing that. Because like I'm on my gaming channel, I did a video on Super Smash Brothers stuff, and I used a lot of footage from Nintendo. And Nintendo's really grabby about their copyright stuff. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that problem when I did my Paper Mario video because I either used footage of my own gameplay or manipulated footage bit by bit of trailers and other various things to step around their copyright stuff.
Right.
You can navigate the copyright system if you know little tricks. The speeding trick is one that Prophet of Zod taught me. He uses 95% speed.
I'm gonna use that because I'm very sick of appealing these. I'm very sick of appealing to YouTube's merciful side, because the merciful side is not. What
mercy? They're a corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's a robot back there. Even the manual review is done
I have
by a
bad
robot,
news, everyone.
Good God.
So you know the rule about fan art and Hammered Out, right?
Oh no! What happened?
The rule about fan art and Hammered Out. The rule is that if fan art is submitted during a Hammered Out episode, it gets displayed
during the show.
We look at
here. So
it goes
now,
up. Yeah. I'm looking in.
It's on screen now. It's
on your server. I can't see it because I don't have the stream up. But is it in fan art on the?
Jack and Quill says that he hates me, and we all have to suffer now.
Hold on a minute.
Yeah, I'm also looking.
You asked for this, and I hate you. No. Why? Jack and Quill. I love the right and giggity. There. On the censor bar.
Classy here,
The
folks.
rule on Hammered Out is that when fan art is submitted during a Hammered Out episode, it gets displayed on Hammered Out. And that's
the rule. If beware, because if you speak something into existence, it might happen, because there are a number of artists that watch this show.
Well,
what a dangerous rule.
It is a dangerous
There
rule.
has been straight up yaoi posted during episodes.
Right, that was YouTube appropriate, but yes, there is yaoi of me and Surus that has been posted on.
This is a little light yaoi, you guys.
It's just a little light banana penetration. It's fine. It's whatever.
It's just a little. It's light. It's light.
It's.
That said, I think it's time to look at super chats real quick before we end. Super chats and donos, and then we will close out with whatever Erica would like to close out with, because she is our guest today. Also, a link to.
Real quick before we go into super chats. Yes. Erica, plug yourself. Let us know where we can find you. We said it at the beginning of the show.
Link in the description
now, and then we'll say it again at the very end. But yes.
Find me at Gutsick Gibbon on YouTube. That's Gutsick Gibbon, like the little ape that's really cute. Same thing for my Twitter, at Gutsick Gibbon. I think Gutsick _Gibbon is actually how it is. But my tweets are alright. I think I do okay on Twitter. I get the likes. I get, I'm a gentle modern ape. I get some of the retweets. I retweet other people. I do the Twitter. And let me think.
She does the Twitter. She's the best at the Twitter. She's got the best Twitter, the most fantastic Twitter.
Shannon bullied me into doing Twitter, by the way. She bullied me into doing it. So it was not by
it's Shannon's fault.
Yeah, she's powerful though. I'm scared of Shannon's wrath, so I did it. And let's see. Email me if you have questions. I love email correspondence, and I check my email semi-regularly. So that's just gutsickgibbon@gmail.com. Those are my plugs.
Is at Gutsick_Gibbon. There is an underscore Gibbon.
And those are not. So actually, Ocean, you said we talked about plugs at the beginning of the stream, but we were talking about furries at the beginning of the stream. I think that's a different kind of plug, dude. Not the same. Not the same kind.
Yeah, dude.
I mean,
what I said is still
you equivocate,
true.
You asshole. Yeah.
Listen, I don't think we
Look,
need
don't talk about
asshole
plugs and
talk.
assholes.
Yeah, we don't need
All right,
assholes.
on to
same
super
time,
chats
sir.
to close us out. For $2,
The tail end of the
Josiah
show,
Hansen
if you
has
will,
super chatted.
Yeah.
is here.
As a pheasant, I am feeling nervous about being here. So first of all, this is the Josiah Hansen that is not discount Hovind, but I really wish he would tune in at some point. That would be great. Glass Monster has super
Wouldn't that be
chatted
nice?
$2. Can I come on the stream? You just did in form of a super chat.
chatted.
Awesome. Michelle has super chatted $10.
Welcome.
Warlock for the win. Wizards are confusing. This is true. I played a wizard in a campaign where I literally tried to steal everyone else's spells and got turned into a iguana and was forced to get beaten to within 1 life point by Raz. So yeah,
Close.
no. Wizards are confusing. We have a super chat from Cuthbert Balsarac. Bananas might just be Matt Powell's favorite fruit. From Ryla, $10.
Uh-oh.
Bless your little heart, sir.
Banana
As
Band
I
2.0.
stares in
Banana.
Southern.
Stairs in
So,
Southern. Retaliates
For anybody
in
who has
Southern.
grown up in this, for anyone who grows up,
He's
in
having
the
a hard
South, you know
time,
what
sir.
Bless your little heart means, and that's very insulting, and I do not feel good. Yes.
Especially with little in it. That's,
Yeah.
Bless your little
It's like
heart,
you just
sweetie.
got slapped with the backside of a hand.
All right. I wasn't aware that we were going to fight
What?
today, but it's time for a duel. And the final super chats until somebody proves me wrong in like 2 seconds. $2.
Down here in the South,
$2
we insult
from
with the
Robert
sweet
Turner.
sugar of sweet tea.
There is no context whatsoever for this super chat, so there's nothing. Nothing there. Nothing. Nothing at all.
Nothing.
Oh,
Nothing.
generous.
Take the money.
Free money.
Perfectly done.
So,
Take it
if
and
you
run,
are
boys.
watching the show right now, please go subscribe to Erica's channel over at Gutsick Gibbon. She has a lot of interesting videos there. If you like my style of content, her longer form dunking content will be good. If you enjoy the LHAT content that I do on my channel, you'll likely enjoy the larger girth of the content on her channel, the 6 to 10 minute. There's much girth. It is
There is
whale-sized
girth. I
girth.
can confirm.
You will enjoy it. Also,
Yeah,
she does her own
whales.
animations on her channel, which is really cool. I wish I had half that kind of talent, but I don't, which is why I pay Jack and Quill.
It's mostly time. I swear to God, it's mostly just
Kind of like Evolution.
Kind of like. Wait, is that? I was gonna. Tie
There's
that
a thing
back.
there.
Whale of
Wait a
Good Time.
second. A whale of a good time. We're a bunch of blowhards, I guess.
That's some fishy sounds you're making there, but that's only if I'm a Hoven. That's only if I'm a Hovendite
They're
and
not
think whales are
fish.
fish. The water.
Whales
Whales
belong
belong
in
in
the
the water, much like that one.
Things were bigger when there was a bit like
Whales-
when there was a higher atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that the
Triceratops are
meme with
just
Kent
big
Hoven is water,
chameleons.
and that's also where the homicide happened on his park. Anyway, I'm sorry. I shouldn't
God.
joke about that, but
Oh.
holy shit, the unremorsefulness from Kent.
Right.
You don't even.
It is. When I first saw the
No,
article, I thought
it was
a meme.
fucking
And
real.
then
I thought it
when
was a
saw-
meme too.
Right. When I saw, right, it was fucking real. And then when I saw Hoven's response to it, I was like,
Please
you,
be a meme.
did you say it that way? Did you say it that
did.
way?
Oh my God.
And it's like there's a
You if there's by chance anyone who's been living under a rock, the context is that a youngster died at Kent's Park, slipped on a
the
dock,
family
hit
is
his
going
head,
to be
and
coming
drowned.
back
If I'm
'cause they had a
remembering
great
correctly,
time.
is what Kent said to the
Yeah.
or what Kent told us as the audience. So
Kent wants to be
no
as
one is
evil
very
as the
happy
Disney
with that
Corporation.
whole. I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do. I mean, the thing is so James from Modern Day Debate was like, hey, do you want to debate Kent again? And I was like, I don't know that I could. Like, after all that, like that's
oh yeah, that's fair.
that's
fair.
just I don't know. It's up in the air right now. We'll see.
Yeah, I would
that's
agree
like
with
a-
that
do-
standard that
Do
you're
I
holding there.
want to
It's
allow
like every-
myself on a platform I'm sharing with this guy who's unrepentant for the child's death?
Yeah, it's every once in a while someone does something that just makes them not sharing a platform with you again. And like the first time I had that experience was S.J. Thomason.
I did a video
if Cirrus, if you recall that yeah. And there's been a few other people that have done something where I'm like, oh, okay, I don't need to bother with you anymore.
Was this the book thing with
that's
SJ?
The what?
The
no.
With SJ?
Yeah.
SJ, no. It was there was a debate that I was in with SJ that featured a guy that was a Satanist. And it was a pleasant debate. The guy was incredibly polite to everybody. And then, later on he died. SJ took the opportunity to tell his widow that
that was when I did my
good God.
Yeah.
I had within the day had her on my channel like 2 weeks prior. And it was like, okay, that bridge is burned.
Yeah, it's like before that I was like, SJ, she's annoying, but she's good faith. But then that happened and I was like,
we're done.
No.
But back on positive notes, whale fucking.
Yes.
So
there
is
are
there
positive
anything that you would like to end on, Erica, that is not the unfortunate circumstances surrounding various creationists and/or apologists on the YouTube platform?
No, man. I would just say if you're intending on debating a creationist, go into it with kindness and compassion. Be educated before you do go into this. If you can, try and ensure that the interlocutor you're debating with is a good faith actor. Never be afraid to admit that you don't know something or that you're wrong about something, and be confident. And that would be my my advice to those of you out there who are thinking about picking up the gauntlet of this very messy job of
don't go in trying to be Trogdor the
Pominator.
Go in trying to be closer to Bill Nye, please.
Yes, yeah. Trogdor, we can save Trogdor for another time. Burnination, there's always time.
Burninating the countryside.
I love it.
Burninating all the peasants.
God damn.
Burnination.
With like the
he was a man, Ocean.
I love it.
Dragon Man.
Yeah, that's what peak milk.
You may not like it, but this is what it looks like. I'm going to put us to the ending screen. I think that's what I'm going to do. Thank you guys for coming out. Erica, thank you for hopping on the channel. This has been a very pleasant conversation.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I had a ball. I admit, we covered a lot of topics I didn't think we were going to touch
each other. We even got visual representation thanks to Jack and Quill's nightmares.
Yeah.
It was a whale of a good time.
It was it was. But we've come to our finale.
Oh.
And with that, we are done.
Stop it.